Hi, my name's Rob Smith from Bain Data Solutions, and this is a short tutorial on the use of APIs and VBA to get data into Excel. If you're unfamiliar with APIs, it stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's a growingly popular means of getting data from third parties into your databases, websites, applications, and so on, commonly used for weather, travel data, and social media, and so on and so forth. And the one that I'm going to be looking at today is some data provided by the Federal Reserve, so Federal Reserve Economic Data, or FRED, and this can be found at the website above, which I'll post in a link below. So the FRED data includes lots of financial information, as you might have expected from the title. So there's lots about employment, borrowing rates, exchange rates, and so on. And there's a guide on the website about the use of APIs, APIs I should say, and effectively if it gives you a URL to use, included within is an API key which you can request for free from the website. And once you've got that key, then you can go on and make requests for the data using any means that you see fit, including Excel and VBA. And the website addresses are the URLs are made up from typically a standard prefix, which is the organization's base URL, then some more information about the type of data that you want, the API key, occasionally sort of search terms on the end there, and the response that's provided when you type in that, when you provide that address, can be in various different formats, but in this instance it's an XML format. You can get JSON formats and so on, and these are some of the parameters which can be provided to the FRED site. So the start date and end date of the data that you're requesting, the how you want to sort the results, you can filter them, tag names, so there's various bits of information that you may wish to have returned, and that can be done by including those in the tag names. So I've already picked out a series of data which I'm going to use for this example, and this is the LIBOR rate for 12-month based on US dollars. So here's the data series as it's shown on the website. It gives us a series ID here, which we can then plug into the API address URL, and that'll enable us to get the data that we want. So let's just kick off by using getting this URL and pasting it into our Excel workbook. So as we're using VBA, we could declare this as a variable, but let's just stick it in a cell for the time being. So let's put that in a named range as well, so we know what we're looking at. So let's call that API URL, and let's call this sheet API, and let's put our data in the first two columns. And if we just look at this data set that we've got, we can see in the XML. If you're not familiar with XML at all, then this isn't the tutorial for you, but essentially all we need to know is that there's lots of nodes here, there's a node here, and then underneath it there's a child node which has got various what we call attributes. So there's real-time start, real-time end, date and value, and the two that we're going to be interested in are the date and the value. So let's just head our columns. Let's call this date, and well, let's call this rate. Let's just capitalize that. Right, so let's go ahead and get straight into our VBA. So let's call this get LIBOR, and we're going to need to declare some references. So the ones that we need are Microsoft Internet Controls, Internet Controls, Microsoft Win HTTP services, so I've got version 5.1, and Microsoft XML to interpret that XML document. So let's declare a string for our URL, and let's declare a worksheet, so we're not always referring back to that. So set ws equals worksheets, and I called it API, sorry. So string URL equals ws start API URL. The square brackets, if you don't know them, are a nice shortcut for getting straight to your range addresses. That works with names like B2 as well as named ranges. And let's just declare this this win HTTP request. So as I mentioned earlier, these APIs are quite similar to web pages, and as with web pages, we need a means of interpreting them. So normally with web pages, that would be your browser. In our VBA, we need this win HTTP request to act as our browser, and this has an open method. So the open method requires what sort of thing that we want to do. So we want to get data. It requires a URL, so we've got that. So let's just pop that in there. And whether it's asynchronous or synchronous, so whether if it's asynchronous, the code will carry on running even if the request hasn't finished retrieving the information. So normally with our VBA code, the code doesn't progress until the last line has ran. But with this type of information, it's you can progress even if the command hasn't fully complete or hasn't received the data back anyway, shall we say. So that's going to make our request for some data, and we're going to receive some data back, and that's going to be in the form of a string which was formatted as HTML, and let's set that as, so that's the response test. So our browser, if you like, is going to open this URL, it's going to send off that request for that information, and then our string resp will be populated with the response that they, the pseudo browser, if you like, provides. And as I mentioned, this is going to come back as an XML document. So let's just declare this as a new msxml2.dom document, they're called. And let's just put in a short test here to see if the document does load up. I'm not going to go into detail about XML documents here. There's good information on the web, especially on MSDN. So this is effectively testing, have we loaded up our document okay? And I'll just put a little error message in there. Obviously, if you were doing a proper job of this, would have better error handling. And the best way to close these down is by setting them to nothing. So we'll set hrec equals nothing, and we'll set XML doc equals to nothing at the end. Let's just, so that's got an error, so let's test there. So our string URL looks okay, and sorry, excuse me. Oh dear. If it's not loaded, then it should produce an error rather than if it has loaded. So that seems fine. And now we're going to look into these, some of the detail about this this XML document. So we have nodes, node list. So I am going to get a list of all the nodes that are in that document. So that's a DOM node list, and set x node list equals XML doc. So if you were observant, you'll have seen that when I had this info up in Chrome, our first node is called observations, and then below this there's lots of child nodes with these attributes of real-time start and end date and value. So back to our code. So we've got that get element by tag name. There's lots of strange methods around XML that you need to get used to, but let's let's define a node. So msxml2 dot ixml DOM node. There you are, and let's set that equals x node. So x node equals x node list dot item. So that's our first item. And we had two attributes that we wanted to obtain. So one was the date, and the other was, it was called value, and it contained our rate. So XML DOM attribute, let's just copy that. We can use that again for our second one. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through these child nodes, and we're going to iterate through them. I should have copied this XML start. XML DOM node. There we go. And we're going to put this data into our worksheet. So in order to track where we are, let's just set us off on row 2. So we had our titles in row 1. As well have a column. Not quite sure why I'm doing this. I'm a bit nervous from me. Bit of a waste, really. We could have just typed in A and B, but may as well now that we're here. If we were looping around them, then that might make some sense. Right, so I like to put my values that I'm retrieving from loops of code into variables, so that when we're debugging we can easily track what's going on. Let's have a string val as well. Don't know if you noticed, but when we were in here, so these values here, on occasion they're populated with full stop values, and that's where it's a bank holiday. So that's going to mess with us if we're doing calculations on that number, so we'll have to deal with that. So for each x child in xnode dot child nodes, let's set these up at attributes. So that's xchild dot attributes dot get named item, and the first one is the date, and let's just copy that again, and the second one was called value, which is our rate. So let's just paste that in. So let's say string val equals, we'll use trim because these often come with leading or trailing spaces, so that'll be ob at 2 dot text. So if string val equals, then Worksheet dot cell, whoops, dot cells, and we'll go in row dot 1 equals, we'll leave it blank, say, and actually we'll put an else clause in there. So else equals string val. We'll format this as well, actually, because I don't know if you noticed, but the formatting of the dates was in the US format, which is no good for me, and also the rates were the rates were 100 times higher than we'd normally consider percentages, so that would normally be shown as 60%, which isn't the case for 12-month LIBOR rate, certainly not nowadays. So let's just finish that then. So that's our date dealt with, and row and column 2 for our value, not for our value. The other, sorry, that should be for our value. Just a string val. Yeah, that should go in column 2. The value should go in column 2. So that's ob at 1 dot text, and let's use the cdate function to, and we'll press trim that as well. Okay, so what we got, int row equals int row plus 1, and if, sorry, next x child, then we've got our cleanup at the end. Let's just go back to our sheet. So we've got date, rate, got our URL in there, so let's just give it a whirl. So our rate's gone in, but our date's gone in the wrong column, and our value hasn't gone in at all. So value should go in row 2, in column 2, but the date should go in column 1. Let's try that again. Looks better. Let's just see how it looks. Let's just chart it out. Where are we going? So let's do a basic line chart. Yeah, and that looks about right. So over the last 12 months, that looks like LIBOR to me. Let's just, should probably not collect the data points, but have the last valid value continuing, but that's not bad. And that's some basics on the use of APIs to get data into Excel. Any questions, just leave me comments either on the YouTube clip or on my website for Bain Data Solutions, and look forward to speaking to you again. Bye.